You know, the First World War was a very sort of cruel war, and so many deaths have taken place. And India was not prepared to join or take part in the revolution. For that, you have to sort of instill a spirit of revolution. So the Gadar movement was one of those movements which could not succeed.
Some of these leaders of the Gadar party were also, either studying or teaching. So, how did your father get started studying agriculture and then involved in sort of the scientific academic development of agriculture?
With all these little diplomas that he had, he was able to enter Portland State University for Agriculture, where he got a BSc in agriculture. And from there, he went to Washington State University, where he was studying genetics there. He passed his MSc and he had reached the level of PhD when the war started.
Yeah, and there seems to be a kind of revolutionary spirit in the air at the time that we're talking about all this. My next question was about when exactly he ended up in Mexico and how he met with Diego Rivera and Tina Modotti.
After the First World War was over, he could not come back to India because already there was a death sentence on his head. At the same time, he was in Germany. Germany was bankrupt. There were no jobs available. But he heard that there was an Indian revolutionary in Germany, Virendranath Chattopadhyay, who was trying to foment independence. In that movement, they went to Russia. Russia had just established the Comintern. The Russian Revolution had taken place and Lenin was there. He went and met Lenin. With him was Virendranath Chattopadhyay, Amba Lohani, and others. Lenin said, "You give me a thesis and tell me what you want." They all gave a thesis to Lenin that they wanted India to be independent. But at the same time, M.N. Roy happened to be in Moscow. And M.N. Roy told Lenin that these people are not good people and they were kept under house arrest. So Lenin refused to meet them. And only my father was called to meet Lenin and talk to him. But Lenin rejected their thesis because he said that you should first instill communism in India and then only think about independence and then only we'll help you, which these people did not want. They wanted independence and nothing else. They came back from Russia back disappointed to Germany, and the British Secret Service had found out that they were there in Germany. And there were many attempts on Virendranath Chattopadhyay's life. And so was my father got scared also. So he ran away and returned to Mexico because United States there was an order for extradition. Extradition would have meant going back to India and being jailed again. So he went to Mexico and he knew the ways, but he reached Mexico and in Mexico he didn't have any money again as usual. And he started growing vegetables in Xochimilco, which is one of the tourist resorts right near Mexico City. And he tried to contact his old revolutionary Mexican friends. One of his friends was Minister of Agriculture and got him a job in the National School of Agriculture, Chapingo, where my father went to work. And Chapingo is a beautiful school. Diego Rivera was a very famous muralist. He had studied in Paris and he had also gone to Russia and he sort of was fascinated by the communist ideology. This was, I'm talking now about the early 1920s. He was commissioned by the Minister of Education, Vasconcelos, to paint a mural in Chapingo, the National School of Agriculture, where my father was teaching. And it was only natural that these two had to meet because they had Russia in common. One of the biographies mentions that my father was helping in mixing the paints of Diego Rivera. This is the time that enters Tina Modotti. Tina Modotti was a woman before her time. She was an activist par excellence. She wanted to help the poor. She was a social revolutionary. She wanted to help the poor to bring social changes into countries. And when she came to Mexico, she was accompanied by Edward Weston, one of the famous photographers of the United States. Diego Rivera asked her to pose for the murals that were being painted in Chapingo. She was put there as Mother Nature. So that is how my father met Tina Modotti also. So they were the three of them. A very strange chemistry developed between the three of them. the social activist Tina Modoti, my father, the militant revolutionary, and Diego Rivera. And he depicted the Mexican farmers, he depicted the Mexican laborers. And Tina Modoti, all of a sudden, she got interested in photography because of Edward Weston. She started taking photographs of the common people at work. Much later, the Ministry of Education, Vasconcelos, asked Diego Rivera to paint a mural in the Ministry of Education. And that is where he painted my father sitting at a table distributing bread to almost the representatives of the people of the world. And in that painting, behind, you can see Mother Nature carrying a basket full of fruits. And on the right side, one soldier, on the left side, one farmer. The same logo, you can say, of Kisan and Jawan that we have in India. And when Tina saw that my father was very interested in helping these poor farmers, he instituted 30 free schools of agriculture with the help of the different politicians. That's how his studies on corn started, his studies on wheat started. And all this work, being such a good friend of Tina Modoti, she photographed them. It is these photographs that have brought to light my father's work. These photographs showed his work in great detail and great depth, including she was the official photographer of the free schools of agriculture, showing the different activity. The work didn't stop there. My father's agricultural work was mainly to increase the yield of plants. He did a study on the increasing the yield of the dwarf variety of wheat. This dwarf variety of wheat, there is a beautiful photography by Tina Modoti where she's showing the ordinary wheat and the dwarf variety, which was a high yielding wheat. Eventually, this dwarf variety of wheat later on in the 1950s was brought by Norman Borlaug and Mr. Swaminathan to India. And they are the precursors of the Green Revolution. I don't think my father ever realized that it was his seminal work on wheat that later on brought the end of those famines in India. There is always a synergy, like you said, between art and social revolution. And Tina Modoti was making the laborers and the farmers as her heroes because she depicted them as heroes in their photographs. They are not ordinary people to her. To her, they are the heroes of a country. It is the artists only who depict what is going wrong in our lives. And it's not only the philosophy of writing and books that is not accessible to everybody, but photographs and the documented pictorial history is accessible to everyone.